Number 10. Edward Bohlen. One of the most famous wrecks along the Skeleton Coast is the Edward Bohlen, a 310-foot-long cargo ship that ran aground in 1909 after becoming trapped in a thick fog. The ship is about as long as the Statue of Liberty is tall. Over the years, the desert encroached upon the shoreline, leaving the vessel partially buried in the sand. Northern Namibia is home to a 500-mile stretch of unforgiving coastline that's notorious for having some of the harshest conditions on Earth. That's roughly a distance from Chicago to New York. Death is ever present along what's known as the Skeleton Coast, which is littered with animal remains and shipwrecks that lost their battle against the elements. Over 500 ships have wrecked in the thick fog, rough seas, unpredictable currents, and heavy winds over the last several hundred years. Sailors who survived the wrecks and made it to land often perished from dehydration in the scorching desert heat. Today, Edward Bohlen sits over 1,000 feet away from the water, a distance as far as the Eiffel Tower is tall, near two other wrecks, near the Otavi and the MV Dunedin Star. The MV Dunedin Star was a cargo ship that ran aground in 1942, and the Otavi foundered and sank in 1945. Some ships along the Skeleton Coast are much older, dating as far back as the 16th century. Number 9. Buried World War II bomber. Acting on a tip recently, a team of museum staff members and local history enthusiasts unearthed a Luftwaffe bomber in northern Poland. The Type D-3 Junkers Ju-87 fighter aircraft, better known as the Stuka, was in excellent condition even after spending 75 years buried in the ground. Altogether, the team retrieved over a half-ton of wreckage, about half the weight of a grand piano, which they found buried in specially dug pits. They did not find the engine or many human remains, despite finding a soldier's boot. Researchers believe the aircraft crashed during a training flight in 1944 when the area was part of East Prussia. While the group that excavated the Stuka usually only works in the Silesia region, they made an exception in this case after a member's uncle told him the story of the Luftwaffe bomber. The aircraft is rare, according to Arkadiusz Dominiak of the Silesian September 1939 Museum in Tichy, who spoke with the First News. While the team initially thought they had uncovered a plane that crashed in 1939, its parts suggested it was a later model. Dominiak explained that the pilot may have fallen unconscious while flying because of the strong G-force, which was especially hard on inexperienced pilots. He hopes that local heritage authorities will allow the museum to keep the wreckage and put it on display. Number 8. A long overdue discovery. Park rangers were surveying Michigan's Hiawatha National Forest in 2017 when they stumbled upon a small wrecked plane in the middle of the woods. Inside, they found the remains of Janet and Mark Davies, a couple who had vanished over 2 decades earlier in 1997 after taking off in their single-engine Piper aircraft from Drummond Island Airport in Lake Huron. They were headed for their home in Howell, 300 miles to the south, around the distance from Chicago to Louisville, Kentucky, but they never arrived. The Civil Air Patrol launched a search, but the pair had failed to file a flight plan, leaving authorities essentially clueless about their possible whereabouts. Their last known whereabouts were picked up by the Toronto Air Route Traffic Control Center, which recorded the moment the couple disappeared from radar. They failed to find the plane in the vast wilderness of the state's Upper Peninsula. After 4 days of searching, officials concluded the plane was presumed destroyed and its occupants were thought to have suffered fatal injuries. Mark and Janet were eventually declared legally dead. Their loved ones held funerals and did their best to move on, but never truly forgot about the couple. After the wreck's discovery, the National Transportation Safety Board announced plans to reopen the investigation to try to determine what had gone wrong during the flight. Number 7. Tanks in the sand. Police in Israel's Holat Nitzanim Sand Dune Reserve received a surprising call in 2017 after a young boy discovered a partially buried Israeli Defense Forces tank. Demolition experts were sent to the scene where they also found old tank shells and a landmine near the vehicle. The authorities removed and destroyed the munitions. They believe the tank is decades old and that the IDF used it for training purposes. Its turret was exposed during some particularly heavy dust storms. It's not uncommon to spot an old tank in Israel. Last year, some tourists were hiking near the Syrian border when they encountered several unguarded Merkava Mk4 tanks. They were able to go inside the vehicles, where they found an assortment of weapons and ammunition. An IDF spokesperson described the incident as an exceptional and serious malfunction and reassured the public that there would be an immediate investigation. They also said that the persons responsible for the deserted tanks would be severely punished and that the IDF had increased security and tightened procedures relating to the vehicles. Number 6. Cold War-era crash. Last year, images surfaced online of an abandoned Douglas DC-3 in Mexico's Yucatan jungle. There are various and sometimes conflicting stories about how and when it got there, with most claiming that the aircraft crashed sometime between 1966 and 1973. It landed in an area known as the Celestún Biosphere Reserve. Rumor has it that the plane was associated with drug trafficking and that it may have even belonged to Pablo Escobar. Agents from the Attorney General's office discovered the wreck in 1979 while flying overhead. The aircraft appeared to be heavily damaged and there was no sign of any crew members. Since then, many explorers have taken it upon themselves to try visiting the wreck, but time and time again they've been impeded by the region's dense vegetation and extreme heat and were forced to turn back. For now, the plane's origins remain a mystery. Who do you think the plane belonged to? Let us know in the comments and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Number 5. New River Scenic Railway Train. For 2 short years from 2008 to 2010, the New River Scenic Railway took tourists on a 62-mile journey through eastern Tennessee. The idea was the brainchild of 2 local innovators who wanted to start a tourism business. After negotiating with the local coal company that owns the tracks for access, they bought a locomotive, a passenger car, and a baggage car that was converted into a snack car and gift stand. The scenic rides quickly became popular, and soon enough the owners had to add another passenger car just to keep up with the demand. But after operating for just 2 years, the tracks fell under new ownership, and it interfered with the ability to run the business. The train was parked at the end of its former line and has sat there ever since, nestled among the trees. The owners tried to take care of it for a while, but it became too much to keep up with, according to train enthusiast John David Ezel, who spoke with the local station WBIR. He further explained that every time someone went to fix or perform maintenance on the train, something else went wrong, creating a costly, never-ending cycle of repairs on a train that wasn't even being used. Eventually, they gave up on it. The train is heavily rusting and deteriorating, with missing and broken windows, ripped upholstery, and a sun-bleached interior. It looks like it's been sitting there for far longer than it has, and is a sad reminder of a once thriving company that, unlike many involved in the rail business, did not shut down because of a lack of business. Number 4. A decades-old discovery. Vancouver-based real estate executive Walter Dalton was flying his plane with 2 passengers aboard in 1957 when it crashed in a part of British Columbia's Fraser Valley that was notorious for claiming aircraft. Today, experienced pilots can safely fly over the region, but it was a different story back then. Out of the many wrecks that have happened in and around the Fraser Valley, some have been found, while others remain missing to this day. Sometimes, search crews had no choice but to give up because of dangerous conditions and the thick forest hindering their efforts. One day in 2020, a local helicopter pilot gave a ride to some community school students who spotted what's believed to be Dalton's long-missing plane from overhead, where it had come to rest 63 years earlier at an elevation of 7,000 feet. The students ventured toward the wreck on foot and found a mess of airplane parts partially encased in ice. Expedition leader Adam Palmer told the press that he'd been in the area many times but had never seen the downed aircraft. He said it gave him an eerie feeling to know that he'd probably walked over it many times without realizing it was even there, and attributed his group's luck finding it because the snow was at its lowest levels of the year. While it proved impossible to determine for sure whether the plane was Dalton's, all signs point toward it. The wreckage was left in place and has since likely been covered by ice and snow. Number 3. EERIE Plane Graveyard. There's a stretch of land between the London Southend Airport and the Skylark Hotel that's littered with abandoned aircraft that may date as far back as the 1950s. Recently, some explorers captured chilling viral footage of the planes which can't be seen from the road. 3 of the aircraft are visible from Google Earth. They sit neglected on a plot of land that looks like it hasn't been touched in years and has become overgrown as they languish with no particular plans for the future. Andrew Kirkland and 2 of his friends asked the hotel for permission to explore the property and were given the go-ahead. The trio found a collection of eerie, rusting planes scattered across what seemed like a dumping ground that nobody cared about. Besides the aircraft, the land was scattered with broken furniture and televisions. Another visitor named Paul described squeezing through a gap in the locked gate and snapping photos while being mindful to keep a respectful distance. While the planes haven't been officially identified, commenters on the Fighter Control Forum speculate that 2 of them are Hawker Siddeley HS-748s that were used by the Royal Australian Air Force, and that a smaller plane at the site is a medium-sized turboprop airliner built by the British manufacturer Avro. But nobody knows for sure, and the plane's identities and origins remain a mystery for now. Number 2. Forgotten Circus Train. Nestled in the remote forest of Nash County, North Carolina, a collection of 9 former Barnum and Bailey circus train cars sit, vacant and mostly forgotten. They're in a thick, overgrown, and difficult-to-access part of the woods, where only the most determined of urban explorers seem to reach them. The cars date back to the 1960s and still bear clear images of circus animals, including a tiger and an elephant, along with the company's trademark slogan, "The Greatest Show on Earth." They've been at the site since 2017 when the North Carolina Department of Transportation reportedly paid $383,000 for the cars following the Ringling Brothers' final performance. The state initially hoped to renovate the cars and use them for passenger service, but eventually decided against doing so and put them up for auction. Apparently, nobody was interested in buying them, and the cars continued to sit in the middle of the forest as they fell further into disrepair. Besides attracting urban explorers, it's rumored that they were occasionally being used as shelter. Not long ago, news headlines reported the train had somehow caught fire and was engulfed in flames. Some saw it as no coincidence that the destruction happened after people began sharing the car's location openly on social media, making it possible for just about anyone to find them. Surprisingly, 2 of the cars sold at auction recently. It's unclear what happened to the rest of the cars, but it's probably safe to assume that they're still sitting in a remote corner of the woods while the state continues trying to get rid of them. Number 1. World War II Crash. In 1942, a crew of 4 members of the South African Air Force flew out of a training mission in a Bristol Blenheim bomber and never returned. It wasn't until the wreck was discovered in 2002 that officials could start to gain an understanding of what likely happened. The following year, the British Army investigated the site on Mount Kenya, Africa's second tallest peak. They bagged up the remains of the 4 crew members who had perished in the wreck and left them beneath the plane's wing with plans to retrieve them later on. 14 years later, Massachusetts resident Monet Elizabeth and her relatives were notified that the remains of the woman's great-uncle, Air Sergeant Simon Eliastam, had been found years earlier along with the plane he went down with. The British military invited Elizabeth to join them on a trek up to the site, even though they were unsure of the wreck's exact location or if they were going to find it. They were about to give up when they located the plane on the steep side of the mountain at an elevation of 9,000 feet. It's an area that sees far less foot traffic than the rest of Mount Kenya, which explains why the wreck remained hidden for so long. Unfortunately, by then, the human remains that had been left at the site were nowhere to be found. In a series of TikTok videos, Elizabeth started documenting her experience. She said experts think her uncle died on impact after failing to see the mountain before crashing into it. Best case scenario, he may have survived the initial crash, but he didn't live for very long after that. Now that the wreck has been found, the surviving families of the lost crew members have received long-awaited closure. Thanks for watching. Which of these places would you most like to visit? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time for another amazing video right here on American Eye.